So if you guys don't know, my business partner and fiance Alex and I created a fitness studio called Modevo Fitness. So here's a tour of kind of what it looks like. When I was starting my gym, I learned a lot from YouTube. So I researched everything I could, what other people did, what their expenses were. A lot of them don't talk about the things that you should know, but the things that you do learn along the way. But kind of what I want to show you is a little bit my gym, what it is. So Modevo Fitness is a personal training studio. We also do group classes and 6-week challenges. The whole premise of the gym started out as it being an open gym, so everyone could use it. But 2 weeks before we opened, we decided to switch the business model. So that was kind of crazy, very stressful. So we went from something where I had the financials broke down of how much we were going to make a year based off of gym memberships, and that completely changed 2 weeks before opening. Not the smartest idea, but now it is definitely the smartest idea that we could have come up with. But the things I want to talk to you about is just the basics of opening a gym and kind of what the pricing point is. So the first thing I want to go over is the rent and the location. So let's say you already have your business name, you have it registered through the state, you kind of know what you're doing. Maybe you already have a gym, or maybe you already have your own personal training studio and you want to expand to a gym now. So now this is the next step. So the first thing when it comes to location is I had a real estate broker help me look for places. Although we did find our own location ourselves, the broker really helped with negotiations, and this was a great thing to have because they have more experience with it and you don't have to pay anything. So you definitely want to have someone that helps you with that. The location was really hard because in Colorado, the rent for commercial real estate is super expensive. We were looking at places, we're in Lakewood, I call it Lake Hood because it's not like the richest area, and they were still wanting like $35 a square foot. And our place right now is 4,000 square feet. Multiply 4,000 by $35 and then divide that by 12. That's how much rent would be a month. That's just absolutely ridiculous. So we had to look for something a little bit more affordable. At first we wanted to go more towards the mountains, but as you're looking for places, you're gonna see that landlords will not allow gyms, and that's why it's so hard to find a location. We also thought maybe downtown Denver in like a warehouse studio space, but it's really hard to find those because people aren't driving around those. So location was really hard to find. When we did find the location, there were some things that we had to consider. We're on the second floor. It's definitely not the best idea for a gym, but with our situation, it's what we had to do, and it's been pretty nice because we have great windows and a great view, and we're on a big main street right now as well. So you have to provide the landlord with kind of a financial breakdown of how you're going to pay the rent every month, also what you're currently making, so just in case you don't make it through the business, you still can pay the rent. With that being said, you can negotiate things like we got our first 2 months, we didn't have to pay rent, but we had to pay utilities. That's another thing you're gonna have to learn is what kind of lease do you have? Do you have to pay utilities, or does the landlord, or is that fixed into your rent as well? And with that, you also usually have to pay the first month's rent. So you'll have to pay a deposit rent plus the first month's rent, and that can get really expensive, especially if you're not open yet. So that's where you kind of have to know the financials of that and have the money ready, which then leads to the next thing of having a loan. If you don't have a loan and you found a location, that's a horrible idea. You better have that money before you start anything, or else you could be seriously screwed. So loans are interesting. You could have an investor, an angel investor. We went with a typical loan because we knew that we weren't going to need a big loan for what we were doing. With that being said, loans can also be tricky if you don't have proof of how much income you're making. So just keep that in mind as well. Definitely do your research and get that loan before you sign any kind of rent documents. And before any of this, we had our business plan in place. We knew where the money was going to come from, how we were going to make our money every month, and then we also did an equipment breakdown expense. So you really have to research what everything is going to cost. For us, I made like a spreadsheet of everything, so I knew I was going to have a green turf, what kind of equipment I wanted, the flooring, certain things like office desks, chairs, and how are you going to get the equipment here. So when you buy the equipment, are you going to do it through a company and then they deliver it for free, or what is the delivery charges? So we were very, very lucky when it came to equipment, and we found everything used. I don't know how this happened. This was like a sign that we were meant to do this, because we found all of our equipment used and it was like perfect condition. The hardest part with what we did, we didn't just buy it from a company, had it delivered. We had to get so the guy we bought it from had it in a storage unit already. We bought it from the storage unit and we had to transfer it into the gym. That was probably the most stressful part, because this equipment was very heavy, and finding a company to move gym equipment was almost impossible, but we did do it. We had to break down all the equipment, so we had to take off all of the weights, and then we had to take it up the stairs. There was no elevator to do this. It's like a very small elevator, so the big stuff we had to take it all the way up the stairs by hand. Not a smart idea, but we did it. But when most people spend $100,000 in equipment, let's just say we paid about like 2% of that. So we did great when it came to that. And the thing that cost more than equipment was actually the flooring. The flooring is very expensive, so take that into consideration as well. What I needed before the gym even opened was, like 3 months of internet. I had to think of something as simple. You have to have computers, you have to have an iPad so the business can run. You also have to think about mirrors. Mirrors are not cheap. Lawyer fees. I had a lawyer look over the lease before we even signed it. That's a good idea. You got like software. For instance, we have MindBody. You have to have that set up. You have to have it ready to go. So when you start selling things, you know how to use it. So you have to think back pay of software as well. If you are going to start with employees, you have to think of, okay, this is how much employees cost. And when you're not making income, if you just started, that's also a big expense. So you have to think of, okay, I have to pay for that as well. We did not do that. I did everything in the beginning to get things started so that I didn't have to take out as big of a loan, which then meant I didn't have to pay more in interest. So that's where it also comes into play. Are you going to spend your time and spend less money, or are you going to do less time and spend more money, kind of a thing? Also, you have to think about construction. Does your gym need to have walls torn down? We have a smoothie bar, and we also put in laminate floors. So luckily, we were able to negotiate that with the lease. So definitely negotiate everything you can. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, we had great landlords just because of everything we were able to negotiate when it came down to it. Oh, also you have to have insurance. So that's also an added expense. You have to have workman comps insurance, and you also have to have like liability for the building insurance. And then also you have to think of certain things like signage outside. We unfortunately were not able to have like outdoor signage, so we have to get a little more creative when it comes to our windows that we have, and that's expensive too. So you have to really break down how much everything's going to cost, and then from there you can think of, okay, this is how much I need to get a loan for. That's just starting up the gym. It can be very stressful, very financially hard, and that's why you really have to be smart about how you're going to make this money and how fast you're going to make it too. These are just the financials. There's other things that we could go over later about things you shouldn't do, should do, but that's just the basics when it comes to how much it's going to cost. We ended up, most people have to pay $100,000 just to start a basic gym, but with ours we were able to cut that in half. So yeah, so that's kind of what it costs and everything to start up a gym. If you have any questions or concerns or anything that you want to learn about more about opening up a gym, just let me know. But will keep continuing with certain things, do's and don'ts, things I've learned the hard way, things I feel like I've done really well with. But if you're wanting to open up your own studio, just know it's very stressful at first. The first 6 months is probably you're going to want to die, but after that you'll be great, and you just got to hustle, market, get out there, make sure people are coming in, enjoying the experience. But that's my experience with opening Modevo Fitness.